Well, look, this was a pretty remarkable late evening development here. A panel of three federal judges at a relatively obscure trade court in Manhattan has concluded that Trump's entire tariff policy is unconstitutional, unlawful, and they have voided all the tariffs. It stems from Liberation Day. Remember that moment in April when he announced tariffs against countries globally. All of that was illegal, says this court. And the separate tariffs against China, Canada, and Mexico, also illegal. It is really a ruling which truly undermines Trump's economic agenda. He will see it as undermining his authority too. Tariffs have kind of encapsulated his identity. They're the centerpiece of his economic platform. They're the tool with which he's tried to exert a sense of global authority. I guess they're kind of the levers of his art of the deal. He imposed them by declaring an economic emergency, which he believed gave him the right to bypass Congress. Well, in their ruling, the judges have said that should not have been the case. They say the president's assertion of tariff-making authority in the instant case, unbounded as it is by any limitation in duration or scope, exceeds any tariff authority delegated to the president. Now, the White House, well, they've said they'll appeal, as you can imagine. In a statement, they said, it is not for unelected judges to decide how to properly address a national emergency. President Trump pledged to put America first, and the administration is committed to using every lever of executive power to address the crisis and restore American greatness.
Can everybody hear me now? Midway Farms, Just Chemicals, everybody hear me now? Hold on. Here we go. Is that better? Looks like we got it now. Bad connection. All right. So as I was saying, a 3-judge panel has jumped in and in a major sweeping move for the globalist stooges has undone all of President Trump's foreign policy and economic policy in one fell swoop. The globalists have won this round. However, this is something that's going to be appealed. The Trump administration has already said they're going to appeal it. So we're going to see where this goes. We're going to jump into a clip here by Judge Napolitano, who kind of vacillates. He covers both sides of the issue. I think it's a fairly good readout and a pretty good discussion. So we're going to jump into that. But this, to me, is a very sad day. When I heard this, when I read this, it really upset me because here is a globalist unelected court stepping all over the Article 2 authority of the president, the only member of the United States government that is elected by the whole of the people. The president is endowed with all executive authority. And part of that is the unabridged ability to conduct foreign policy. And as part of that, he has the unabridged ability to levy tariffs as part of foreign policy. Now, this has been further delegated to the president by the Trade Act of 1962, which we'll get into that. But I think this is a very sad day. This is a day when the globalists and the uniparty stooges, the establishment, have figured out another way to try to block President Trump as he fights for the American worker, for the American economy, for an America First agenda in favor of enriching the rest of the world, which is what the globalists want to do. So let's dive into this clip by Napolitano, but Just Chemicals, Midway Farms. Thank you for joining me. Here we go.
Senior judicial analyst Judge Andrew Napolitano, you warned us a couple of weeks ago, I think, on this show that this was coming and that the Trump administration was going to lose based on the reasons that the justices gave, the judges.
This is a unique court. This is a court without a jury. It's a federal court that sits in panels of 3s. In this case, one of the 3 was appointed by Ronald Reagan, one by Barack Obama, one by Donald Trump. Their ruling, Mark, was nothing short of stunning and surprising. They found that the United States is not in an emergency situation with respect to the economy, as the president declared, and they found that the Congress doesn't have the authority to give the president the power to impose tariffs, and they found the statute on which the president relied doesn't even mention or authorize tariffs. So all the tariffs are negated. They gave the government 10 days to do the negation because this is an enormously complex economic matter now because the tariffs are paid and collected all around the world.
So here's the question, though, then, because obviously the administration immediately appealed. You said there is a special appeals court that this kind of case would go to.
Correct.
Before it would get to the Supreme Court.
Correct.
But I mean, who are these judges to say, I don't believe you in an emergency? Who declares an emergency if not the President of the United States?
Great question. The statute itself defines an emergency. So Congress said, here's what an emergency is: a sudden and unexpected event that adversely affects national security or economic prosperity. What did the president say the emergency was? The imbalance of trade. How long have we had an imbalance of trade? Since 1934. So it's obviously doesn't meet the definition in the statute. I know a lot of our friends and a lot of people watching now are going to say, why are 3 unelected judges interfering with the ability of the president of the United States to negotiate economic deals for American industry? They're not. They're doing their job of making sure the Congress stays within the confines of the Constitution and the president stays within the confines of the Constitution.
So from a next step standpoint, because obviously the president's going to say and the administration is going to say we are in an economic emergency when you combine the trade deficit with China, using the results of that trade deficit to build its military, to expand its power base. But then you also have 18 countries right now, 180 some countries coming to want to do international foreign trade deals.
Correct.
And this hinders the president's ability to conduct foreign policy,
Mark,
which the Supreme Court hates.
Mark, if I may, this more than hinders it. This undermines it. I mean, why would Ursula von der Leyen, who runs the EU, even be negotiating with President Trump now?
Exactly. Why would anybody be negotiating with the United States if there are no sticks? If there are no carrots? That's the only way we get people to negotiate. And Donald Trump has brought 100+ nations to the table to fix the trade imbalance, to stop the gigantic sucking sound, to stop the strip mining of American middle-class wealth. Because make no mistakes, the current trade situation as it is set up 100% solely benefits the upper 1%, the globalist corporations, the globalist cabal, the establishment, because they get to essentially use other countries' cheap slave labor, but sell their products in the United States. So they get to outsource all the labor where they can dispense with OSHA, dispense with child labor laws, dispense with slavery laws, all of that. And then they get to sell those products into the United States. This is absolutely egregious, and it is absolutely stepping on the president's ability to conduct foreign policy. And this is where the Supreme Court needs to step in and go, no, absolutely not. Plus, he's talking about a statute that mentions emergency, but there's also the Trade Act of 1962, which does not necessarily mention emergency. It delegates the ability based on foreign policy for the president to act. The Trade Expansion Act of 1962 granted the president significant authority to negotiate trade agreements, primarily by lowering tariffs with the goal of promoting international trade. A key provision was Section 232, allowing the president to restrict imports or negotiate with trading partners if imports were determined to threaten national security. You don't need the whatever statute he's talking about definition of an emergency. No. This threatens national security. So, and this was put in place in 1962. This is not something you're going to judicially review now and strike down. You're not going to strike down this statute. The International Trade Court does not have the ability to do that. This has already been upheld by the judicial branch. So the president absolutely has the ability to restrict imports. If nothing else, he simply needs to make all of his tariffs, he needs to rewrite all of his tariffs under the national security provision. Basically say that every single, and he may have to go country by country. He may not be able to do sweeping tariffs. He may not be able to quote unquote base them on trade imbalances, but he can basically go to every single country and say, I'm imposing this tariff based on national security. And that might be what he needs to do in the interim while he fights this battle in the appellate court. But Laura Ingraham and Representative Kennedy had a very, very salient take on this. as they talked about this very judicial ruling. Check this out.
Senator, we just got breaking news.
They're building
Senator,
ships.
yeah, Senator, I'm so sorry to interrupt. We just got other breaking news. The big news tonight. A federal court just blocked the majority of Trump's tariffs. The Court of International Trade saying he overstepped his authority under an International Emergency Economic Powers Act. This was, I believe, the three-judge panel. There was a Reagan appointee, a Trump appointee, and a Biden appointee on this particular panel. This was kind of widely predicted among those who study trade closely. So those European tariffs blocked. Senator, your reaction?
You mean that a federal judge has intervened with the other two branches' ability to make policy? I'm shocked. That hasn't happened since yesterday.
5
it'll
minutes
be taken
ago.
up. It'll be appealed. I think it's pretty clear that the president has tariff authority. Congress gave it to him. Now you can debate whether that was a prudent move or not, but I think it's pretty clear that he has tariff authority.
Yes.
Absolutely. He has tariff authority according to the Trade Act of 1962. Senator Kennedy is absolutely correct. This will be appealed. But like I said, if I was the Trump administration, while this appeal is being heard, I would simply rewrite all of the tariffs under the national security provisions, not the emergency. Get rid of the idea of emergency. Simply rewrite them as national security tariffs under the Trade Act of 1962 and tell the courts to go pound sand, to go screw themselves. That's what I would do if I was in the administration at this point. I think he needs to unleash Stephen Miller on this and take a very by the letter legal reading of the statute of the Trade Act of 1962 and go after it. And frankly, this is the only senator or congressman I've heard speaking out on this, which is, shall we say, revealing, not surprising. 95% of Republicans are silent about the judicial coup. They're silent about this aspect of the judicial coup, about the judicial coup into the Trump deportations, about the judicial coup into the Trump immigration policy. Over and over and over again, the globalist establishment is attempting to undermine Trump and the populist movement. They are attempting to undermine America and American workers at every single step. They are 100% in league, owned by the globalist establishment cabal. And we as the American public need to bring this to an end with our social media influence, with our absolute outrage, and by forcing Congress to do something. The International Court of Trade is not an Article 3 court. It is a court that was created by the judicial branch. The only Article 3 court created by the Constitution is the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court has not created underling courts. They were created by Congress. So Congress should immediately slap this court down with a censure or by a simple majority vote of the House and Senate, essentially vacate this court, this judgment. I would figure out, if I was Speaker Johnson, what can the Congress do to vacate these judgments, because they are legislative courts. They're not the Supreme Court of the United States. Lots of things to do here, lots of things to unpack as we go, as we figure out more information, but really appreciate everybody rolling up. Thanks so much for being here. Jackie Shetter, absolutely Supreme Court ruled Trump can deport and other presidential acts freely. So hopefully they will weigh in on this and get rid of this ridiculous International Court of Trade ruling. Thanks so much for being here. Short live this morning, but we go on live later on today. Thanks so much. Keep an eye out for that. It'll be this afternoon. Really appreciate everybody rolling up to Courageous Media. Until I catch you next time, remember, God is good and he is sovereign. Hey, he's still in control, no matter what the globalist courts decide. Thanks so much for being here. Until I catch you next time.